everyone, and welcome to this legal insight session run by Kaizen Synergy Law Firm. My name is Nihal Samara. I'm the General Counsel and Legal Director here at Kaizen Synergy, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's session. Today's session actually marks the first of a series of webinars that we're running every Monday. We are going to be running these sessions weekly to give you a roadmap that actually looks at all of the governance, risk, and legal compliance obligations that not-for-profit agencies need to meet. Each week, we're going to be covering off key topics. We will be supplying you with legal resources as well too. They may take the form of checklists, but certainly policy templates where relevant, and other tools that you can actually use literally after each webinar to allow you to meet your governance, risk, and legal compliance obligations as well too. The idea of these sessions is that they are hands-on, meaning that some of the resources and information that we are going to be sharing with you can literally be used straight after the webinar that we do run. The topics that we will cover off are specific to not-for-profit agencies and cover off some of the areas that agencies really need to be mindful of. We will be looking at specific areas that require legislative compliance change, or as the legislation changes, we will be keeping you up to date with these as well too. These also do follow our legal update service, and we are changing those or updating those as well too, where you will actually receive at the end of each month changes to bills that are coming out of the relevant state or Commonwealth government, and also what legal updates you need to consider for your agency as well too. We will be covering off specific topics that your agency also needs to consider. As always, we do record these webinars and we will circulate these to you. These can be also found in the Gemba College on your Gemba dashboard, which I will come to. While these sessions are being recorded, we do pay our respects to the elders past and present upon the lands on which we all meet. While this session will be recorded and you are free to use these as well too as you need to within your agencies, we do pay our respects to the traditional owners accordingly. So with that, let's have a look at today's agenda. We are going to cover off the overview of governance, risk, and compliance for the specific standards. We will review the governance standards that agencies, regulatory agencies are looking at. We will also give you access to your Gemba dashboard and update you with the various tools that you have. We will also show you the access of the legal templates such as policy registers and other information that you can use. That said, if you do have any questions after today's webinar, then by all means, please reach out to me directly on my mobile, or you can contact our law firm's office on the 1300 360 360 number, and of course email us at support@gemba360.com. I will just jump and update you in regards to the legal resources that you do have access to. You can access directly from our law firm site by going to Gemba 360, or you can just go to gemba360.com. Most of you do have access to this as already. If you don't, you will be sent your login details. Once you log in, there are a couple of tools that I will mention that we will be referring to. The first one being the Gemba College, which is where we actually do post all of our recorded webinars. You can access these webinars at any time that you need to. And once you do log in, you click on the Gemba College and it'll take you to this space here, and you can go in and actually have a look under the legal compliance section of your webinars, and you'll be able to access all of these previous recordings. And as we go through the next series starting today, then you will be able to view these at any later period of time. The other tool that I will also mention is the governance and risk and legal compliance checklist. And I am just going to highlight this for you here. It's on the left-hand side toolbar. And when you click on that, what will come up is this tool here. And essentially what we do have is a self-assessment tool that you can go in and use. It lists a whole bunch of information that you can see here, and it is a yes or no type answer. And it covers off financial abuse, cybersecurity, working with partners, and also safeguarding checklist as well too. And it is for your agency to use. Of course, as we go through these over the next coming weeks as well, you can revisit these as well. And it is a resources that are there for you to view. Someone has just asked about the templates and where we find these as well too. Just going back to the GEMBA dashboard, the legal resources is found in the GEMBA docs, and I'll just open that up here, and it is under policies and procedures. But certainly, as we come to those in the next few weeks, you will be able to access policy templates that your agency can use as well too. So let's have a look at the governance obligations. Well, essentially the governance standards under the ACNC, and I will also be covering ORIC for the agencies that are registered under the Registrar of Indigenous Corporations, and those cover Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders corporations. So essentially there are 6 governance standards which require specific due diligence by your directors and officers. And some of these do essentially have penalty units attached to it. Most of you should be familiar with these, but essentially Standard 1 covers the purposes and not-for-profit nature. Standard 2 covers accountability to members. Standard 3 covers compliance with Australian laws, and there are penalty units that are attached for this. Standard 4 covers suitability of responsible people, and Standard 5 covers duties of responsible personnel within your agency. We have had a question just in regards to where the new director's ID fits into all of this. Well, essentially, some charities do need to ensure that their directors have a valid director ID by the 30th of November. And we have been running sessions on these for the past few weeks. Standard 6 covers maintaining and enhancing public trust and confidence in the Australian not-for-profit sector. So essentially, all of these talk about specific requirements that your agency does need to meet. Irrespective of this, what we are finding also is that there are key governance areas that regulators are focusing on for community service and not-for-profit agencies. And these cover financial abuse, cybersecurity, working with partners, and safeguarding vulnerable people. Now, what we mean by this is essentially that these 4 topics are of interest to the regulators, and you need to be able to demonstrate from a legal compliance point of view that your agency meets these obligations. So when you look at also risk management, agencies are looking at, well, how should we put these good governance and accountability into practice to manage and reduce the risk of things like terrorism, fraud, and other forms of abuse. So essentially what they've done is identify 4 areas. The first one being financial abuse. Now, financial abuse is a term that covers a number of issues, including possible instances of bribery, corruption, financial fraud, and improper use or misappropriation of community services funds. It is critically important that your charity has an understanding of what financial abuse is and are confident that they have the knowledge and process to be able to mitigate the risk and address these issues. What isn't clear is what does those key requirements mean? And I will come to the self-assessment checklist that we have actually built upon to allow your agency to conduct a self-assessment to see if you meet all your requirements. The other obligation is on cybersecurity. Now, we ran a number of these training sessions a few months ago, and this was actually before the public cybersecurity attack on Medibank Private and also Optus. It was well before then, but essentially all charities are vulnerable to cybersecurity, including unauthorized access to hacking, data breaches, viruses, and phishing. And we do have a policy that you can actually utilize to ensure that your agency meets your what I'll call minimum requirements of both cybersecurity and also the other standards. What is important for charities is that you recognize issues of cybersecurity and how they may affect operations for your agency. It is just as important that charities know how to best mitigate the risks of cybersecurity and address these issues that arise. So with these 2 areas around financial abuse, cybersecurity, looking at the other area of working with partners. And again, this is some of the issues that you do need to be aware of in terms of what your agency needs to meet. And what we do see from these, if we just to summarize these down of what working with partners is that many charities develop working relationships with partners and other charities, but also not-for-profit businesses and commercial enterprises. So again, charities must ensure that their relationships are well planned and solid via a solid written agreement. Now, this is coming out of the ACNC. What essentially it also means in terms of the last standard that the charities regulators are looking at is safeguarding vulnerable people. And when you look at what the regulators say, essentially what they're covering off is things like they talk of safeguarding and protecting the welfare of human rights, and they talk of also ensuring that you meet your charity's primary duty. And also look at, well, what is and how do you actually respond to incidents or safeguarding your charity? What does this actually mean? Well, essentially what we have looked at is a self-assessment tool to walk you through to be able to meet these requirements. Now, if I go in, and you can log into your Gemba dashboard and you'll be given access to this as well too, is the self-assessment tool just on the left-hand side here. And I'm just going to highlight this here. And you can see governance, risk, and compliance tool. And when I click on that, this comes up. And it's a tool that is actually designed for you to be able to use. And it asks you a series of questions. Now, I am just going to bring this up to make sure, and I'll just zoom this in so that you can actually see this directly. So let's have a look at what this means. I'm just going to bring this up. Here it is here. And I've just made the screen slightly bigger for you to be able to view. Let's make that screen slightly bigger again. Okay, there we go. So under each of these areas, and there are 4 headings, and someone just asked, how did I get here? Well, quite simply, if I go back to the main dashboard, you can see the governance, legal side. I'm just moving it up and down here, governance, risk, and legal compliance tool. I click on that, and you can then add a new form. Now, from here, we've given you a self-assessment tool. So under financial abuse, we ask, how does the charity understand its purposes and ensure its funding are directed to your purposes? What is the do you have a documented financial abuse policy? Do you keep a list of your legal obligations for financial transparency and governance? Do you raise awareness with staff on what financial abuse is? Do you have a policy? So again, these are the specific items that regulators are actually looking for to ensure that you meet your legal compliance obligations. In terms of cybersecurity, which is a big one, and we will be covering this in some detail over the next few weeks. And again, it asks, have you got a clear policy on cybersecurity issues? Now, that's fine. What we do suggest is if you do say no to any of these as well too, you don't arrange, do you arrange training for all staff and volunteers on cybersecurity and privacy issues? Now, you may not do that at the moment, and that's okay. If you just say, well, no, I don't, do you conduct assessments to identify weaknesses? Some agencies are looking at this going, well, I don't even know what the weaknesses are in order for me to be able to identify what they are. I don't know what I don't know. So I'm going to say in the upcoming weeks, we are going to supply these to you. This is what we are going to be covering off on ensuring that you know what you need to meet and you can go into it uninformed. Other things may already be done where you might already have another IT vendor, for example, that actually updates to antivirus software, for example. So these are the checklists that the ACNC has come up with. We are adding to these as well too in some of the other regulatory requirements that you need to meet. So once you go down, and actually I'm just going to say complete this checklist, you can simply save it. And that'll actually create an entry. If I just go back here, you can see here that it'll give me, I did this back in September, and you can see that it's incomplete. So once I save it, it'll return me to this screen, and I can just go in and simply click on edit again, and I can actually have a look at what I've actually marked. So you may not want to do this all in one sitting, and that's fine. But again, you've got a self-assessment checklist of what is the requirements, and I'll say the line in the sand of what you actually need to meet. So generally, you should be able to actually answer yes to all of these. Now, as I said, if you can't, that's okay for now, because we're actually going to walk you through this over the next coming weeks and months, not just on this area, but certainly under some of the other areas. So, for example, let me bring this up here, working with partners, you may need to look at, are these considerations documented? And does your charity have a due diligence checklist for checking the partner organization? Most of you probably would say no to this. Well, we're going to actually walk you through of exactly what this looks like. And again, as I mentioned, this list here came from the ACNC site. What we find interesting with so many regulators is that they make all these recommendations, but don't actually tell you how or what to actually do. And agencies are left sort of stranded going, okay, I answer no to this, but what does that actually mean? Well, we're going to unpack these for you as well too. So this is essentially where we are heading with these webinars that we are running. So when you are looking at these slides, which we will send out after the session today, is to actually look at, well, what are the definitions? And you've got this information at hand. So just going back to the slides, here we are here. You can actually go back and have a look at all of these different information and what the definitions actually are. What I will add to this is working through these recommendations is to look at having a look at these slides, having a look at the legal resources that we are going to give to you to make compliance easy, and so that you know where I'll call it the legal compliance line in the sand is, and what you need to aim for to be above it. Where there are gaps, for example, like checklists and agreements and the like, well, this is part of the webinars that we are running, and you'll be able to access these resources. We will reach out to you after today's session. If you do have any questions, then by all means, please reach out to me. You have my mobile number. It is listed here. You have our contact number, and if you do have any questions, you can email us as well. I will just add with these sessions as well, you will find that on your dashboard, if I just bring this back, you will find that there is, and I will just go back here, that there is a little support bar on the bottom left-hand corner, and you can see that this support desk actually follows you everywhere. So if you are going in and you do see this webinar and go, oh my goodness, I'm not sure where to go, or even having troubles resetting it, then by all means, just reach out to us here, and we are here to support you from a legal compliance perspective as well. Now, with it, next week, we are going to be looking at risk registers. We are going to be looking at policy templates as well, and certainly covering off the requirements that you need to meet. This will actually go through certainly over the next till at least 30th of June each week. If you can't meet these sessions, then by all means, you can watch these webinars, and we will send out these resources to you. If you have any questions, by all means, please stay on the line, and more than happy to answer them before we finish off today. If you are watching this recording after today's live session and have any questions, then please reach out to us on 1300 360 360, or you can email us at support@gemba360.